burnout and be replaced by other young teachers. Charters are free to award performance pay and to set their own salary schedule. They have every advantage that the current reform movement, the current corporate-led reform movement champions, so they should all get great results, except they don't. Students in charters have been compared to students in regular public schools on the federal test, the NAEP, since 2003. So in 2003, 2005, 2007, 2009, charters have been compared to regular public schools, and charter students have never outperformed students in regular public schools. Not black students in charters, not Hispanic students in charters, not low-income students, not students in urban areas. There's essentially no difference. The most authoritative national study of charters was released in 2009 by Stanford University economist, funded by the Pro-Choice Foundation, the Walton Family Foundation. That study looked at math performance of students in half the charters in the nation. Their study included some 2,400 charter schools in 15 states, and it concluded that only 17% of the charters got better results than a matched regular public school. That's about 1 out of 6 charter schools got better results. And 46% of the schools, nearly half, the results were no different between the regular public, and the charter schools. And in 37% of the schools, the results were worse in the charter than the regular public schools. So if Florida creates many more charters, the odds are that only 1 out of 6 will be better than the school it replaced, and almost 4 in 10 will be worse. These are not good odds, nor is it fiscally responsible to create large numbers of schools, knowing that nearly 40% of them will be worse than the ones you close down. And to the extent that the charters thrive, the remaining public schools, especially in poor communities, might well be worse off because they may lose their best students to the charters and get a disproportionate number of children with disabilities, with the most extreme disabilities, who are seldom accepted in charters, and also the children who are homeless, who are hardly ever found in charters. New York City has 60,000 homeless children in New York City, and only about 150 of them are in charter schools. That's a tiny, tiny proportion. It's not necessarily because they're being excluded, it's just the nature of their families, or that they don't know that there are charters, they don't know how to apply, and they move along. Every major study has reached conclusions similar to those I've just described. Last summer, a government-funded report prepared by Mathematical Policy Research and posted on the U.S. Department of Education's website compared charter middle schools with lotteries to regular public middle schools. It found that the charter schools did not produce higher academic outcomes or better student behavior, whether in school or outside of school. No difference. Well, perhaps you may have seen the movie that came out last fall called Waiting for Superman, which held up charters as the answer to our nation's education problems. Sorry to say that it didn't get nominated for the Academy Award. Well, even that movie, Waiting for Superman, admitted very quietly in a kind of a low voice that only 1 in 5 charters gets amazing results. Although I would say they're referring to the same study I described, that it was a 17% success rate, which is closer to 1 in 6, not 1 in 5. 1 in 6 do not get amazing results, only results better than our similar public school. The movie contained many erroneous claims, and I think it's important to do some fact-checking. It said, for example, that 70% of American 8th graders were reading below grade level, but that's simply false. On the national test administered by the federal government, 25% of 8th graders are below basic, not 70%. Now, it would be nice if no child were below basic, but that 25% includes students who don't read or speak English, as well as special education students. We should get the number down, but we're not facing the kind of national crisis that the movie described. Waiting for Superman also said astonishingly that poverty doesn't matter when it comes to academic performance, and that resources don't matter. Neither of these statements is true. The movie holds up Jeffrey Canada's Harlem Children's Zone to prove the case, its case. But the Harlem Children's Zone does not prove either of those assertions. For one thing, the zone doesn't pretend that poverty doesn't matter. It was created to address the problems of poverty in Harlem. It offers a huge array of medical services, social services, preschool, after school, parent education, and other programs Jeffrey Canada runs 2 charter schools. They have far more resources than the neighborhood public schools. The Harlem Children's Zone itself, which has a very powerful and very wealthy board of directors, has private assets of over $200 million. Its charter schools have small classes, one-to-one tutoring for children who need it, and ample resources. These schools get better results than the neighboring schools. The neighboring schools might well get the same results if they had the same resources as the Harlem Children's Zone. So I've asked, whenever I've spoken to audiences around the country, I say, I know there are a lot of teachers in the audience. Is there anyone here whose school has too many resources? I've never yet seen a teacher who said, my school does, take my resources. Never. What I've learned is that resources don't matter if you already have them. If you have $200 million in assets, and you can send your children on special trips to the Galapagos and Disneyland, then you don't have a resource problem. But a lot of schools do. And it may be that our schools misallocate resources, with lots of resources going to affluent neighborhoods and not enough resources where the kids are who need them most. Another of the charter schools featured in that movie, Waiting for Superman, is the Seed Charter School in Washington, D.C. It's a boarding school. And what the filmmaker never mentions is that school cost the taxpayer $35,000 per child per year. $35,000. So yes, resources matter in that school too. When I reviewed the movie in the New York Review of Books a couple months ago, I was very impressed when I went to the website for the Seed Charter School. The website said that 96% of their graduates were accepted into college. And I thought that was very impressive until a friend sent me a page off a U.S. Department of Education website that said, Seed Charter School has a huge attrition rate. Many of the children who start school in 7th grade never reach the 12th grade. Seed accepts 140 students in 7th grade. Last June, 34 graduated. That's a 75% attrition rate. That's pretty impressive when you consider that 96% of the graduates went to college, but 75% didn't make it to the 12th grade. Apparently, though, that things have improved, because in one recent year, only 13 of the 140 survived to graduate. That's a 90% attrition rate. So I think, we don't do ourselves any favor, we don't do children any favor when the media circulates these miracle stories that turn out to have problems, have flaws, have inaccuracies, when they don't tell the whole story. And we should not accept any characterization of a school as a miracle turnaround school if it hasn't been in existence and turning around kids over several years, not just one. And look at all the data, not just how many kids graduated, but how many kids started, how many kids got pushed out, how many kids left. The real driving force behind the charter movement today, and I'm accepting, again, those charters